The kingdom of my divine will in the midst of creatures. Book of Heaven, Volume 30, Part 11. April 9th, 1932. How Jesus keeps molding the creature in order to make her rise again in the new life of his truth. How Jesus alone could manifest so many truths on the divine will, as he possesses the font of them. My abandonment in the divine volition continues. I feel like the little girl who, sip by sip, is nourished with this celestial food, which produces in my soul strength, light, indescribable sweetness. And then each truth that my beloved Jesus manifests to his little newborn is one of the most touching and delightful scenes, and of the most beautiful, which he places in my mind as bearer of the beatitude of the celestial fatherland. So I was feeling immersed in the so many truths of the supreme Fiat, and my always lovable Jesus, visiting his little girl, told me, "My little daughter of my will, you must know that if our Supreme Being gave to the creature all the heavens, the sun, the earth, the sea, he would not give as much as when he communicates the truths on the divine will. In fact, all other things would remain outside of the creatures, while the truth penetrates into the inmost fibers of her soul. And I keep molding the heartbeats, the affections, the desires, the intellect, the memory, the will, to transform her completely into the life of the truth. And as I go on molding her, I keep repeating the prodigies of the creation of man. And by the touch of my hands, I destroy the seeds of evil, and I make the seeds of the new life rise again. The creature feels my touch, and as I keep molding her, the new life that is given to her again. On the other hand, the heavens, the sun, the sea do not have the transforming virtue of making of the creature a heaven, a sun, a sea. All the good is limited to the outside, and nothing more. See, then, how many goods are enclosed in my having manifested to you so many truths. Therefore be attentive in corresponding to a good so great. Then I continued to think about the many truths on the divine will. How many joys! How many divine transformations! They themselves have been the revealers of the Supreme Being. I would never have known my Creator, my Celestial Father, if the holy truths had not acted as messengers, bringing to me the many beautiful news of His adorable Majesty. And while the many truths crowded my mind, a doubt arose in me. Was it really Jesus, the one who has manifested to me so many truths? Or was it the devil? Or my fantasy? And Jesus, surprising me, told me, "My good daughter, how can you doubt? The mere multiplicity of the many truths on my own divine will is a sure proof that only your Jesus could have a speaking so prolonged on the same subject, with varied and powerful arguments. In fact, possessing the font of them, it is no wonder that I manifested to you and in many ways. The little drops of light, I could say, of the knowledges on my adorable will. I say drops for me, compared to the much and to the infinite sea that I can still say. Indeed, if I wanted to speak for all eternity, I have so much to say on the knowledges that regard my supreme fiat, that I would never end. But for you, what I have manifested have been seas, because what is drops for me, who am the infinite being, is sea for you, who are a finite creature. So the mere prolixity, and my so much speaking, is the surest and most convincing proof that only your Jesus could have so many reasons, and that he alone can know so much of what regards my own will. The enemy does not possess the font, and besides, he would touch a key that would burn him even more, because the thing that he hates the most, and that most torments him, is my divine will. And if it were in his power, he would turn the earth upside down. He would use all arts and tricks, so that no one would know and do my will. Much less could your fantasy, so limited and small. Oh, how quickly would the light of reason remain extinguished! And once having spoken 2 or 3 reasons, you would have acted like those who want to speak and feel themselves being struck dumb, and cannot go any further. So confused, you would give yourself back to silence. Therefore only your Jesus has the word ever new, penetrating, full of divine freshness, of admirable sweetness, of surprising truth, such that the human intellect is forced to lower its forehead and say, "Here, there is the finger of God." Therefore recognize a good so great, and let my will alone be your central point in all things. Fiat. April 13th, 1932. The human nature that lets itself be dominated by the divine will. Field of its action, and flowery earth. How the divine will possesses the inseparability. I am always in the arms of the divine will, like a little girl clasped in the arms of her mamma, who holds me so tightly in her arms of light as to let me see, feel, and touch nothing but divine will alone. And I thought to myself, oh, if I were free from the prison of my body, my flights would be more rapid in the fiat. I would have known more. I would have been, indeed, one single act with it. But it seems to me that my nature makes me do some interruptions, as if it were placing obstacles, and it makes it hard for me to run always in the divine will. But while I was thinking of this, my divine teacher, Jesus, visiting my little soul, told me, "Blessed daughter, you must know that with one who lives in my divine will, my will has the virtue of keeping the nature of the creature in order, and instead of being an obstacle, it is a help for her to be able to do more acts of divine will. Even more, it serves like earth to the flowers, which offers itself to form the beautiful flowerings that almost hide it and cover it with the variety of their beauties, to which the sun communicates the variety of the most beautiful colors, and keeps glazing them with its light. If it wasn't for the earth, the flowers would lack the place in which to form their life, to be born and make their beautiful appearance. And the sun would find no place, no one to whom to communicate the display of its beautiful colors and of its pure sweetnesses. Such is the human nature for the soul who lives in my divine will. It is like fecund and pure earth, which offers itself as the field of action, and not only to let her form the beautiful flowerings, but to let as many suns pop out for as many acts as she goes on doing. My daughter, it is an enchantment of beauty to see the human nature that lives in my divine will, covered and hidden as though under a flowery meadow, all invested with most refulgent light. On her own, the soul could not have formed so many varieties of beauties. While united to it, it finds the little crosses, the necessities of life, the varieties of the circumstances, now sorrowful, now joyful, which it uses as seeds, in order to sow the earth of the human nature, so as to form its flowery field. The soul has no earth, and would not be able to produce any flowering, while united to the body. Oh, how many more beautiful things it can do! More so, since this human nature was formed by me. I molded it part by part, giving it the most beautiful shape. I can say that I acted as divine artisan, and I placed in it such mastery that no one else can match me. So I loved it. I still see the touch of my creative hands impressed on the human nature. Therefore, it also is mine. It belongs to me. Everything is in the complete accord. Nature, soul, human will, and divine will. When this is there, the human nature offering itself as earth, the human will in act of receiving the life of the divine will into its acts, letting itself be dominated in everything, and knowing nothing else in all its things, but my will alone as life, actor, bearer, preserver of everything. Oh, then everything is holy, everything is pure and beautiful. My fiat remains over her with its brush of light, in order to perfect her, divinize her, spiritualize her. Therefore, your nature cannot be an obstacle to the flights in my will. Rather, an obstacle can be your will, as you must always keep an eye on not giving it life. But from your earth, there is nothing to fear. As for it, if it gets something, it receives and gives what it has received. Or rather, it gives more, and it changes the seed into flowers, into plants, into fruits. And if it gets nothing, it stays there in its mute silence and remains like sterile earth. Then I was thanking Jesus for his beautiful lesson, and I felt all content that my human nature could not harm me. On the contrary, it could help me in letting the life of the divine will grow in my soul. And I continued my rounds and flights in its acts. And my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, my divine will possesses the inseparability from all its acts and effects, whether it operates alone within itself and outside of itself, or it operates in the creature, or the creature operates in it, or executes what my divine will wants. In this way of operating, it places something of its own, and it holds it as its own acts and its own properties, inseparable from it. Now, if the creature lives in my divine will, these acts become common property of one and the other. If then she makes some exits, she loses her rights. First, since those acts were done in our house, and then, because the substance, the life of the act, the sanctity, the beauty, the prerogatives that are needed in order to form an act of ours, were placed by our divine will. The creature has done nothing other than attend and concur with her will of operating, together with our own. But as for substance, she has placed nothing of her own. Therefore, if she persists in living in our will, she masters together with it. If she goes out, by justice, nothing is due to her. But if she re-enters into it, she acquires again the right of mastership. However, there is a great difference between one who lives in my divine will and operates together with it, and one who, not living in it, follows and does what my fiat wants in the circumstances. This one takes in her act my will as limited, and as she finishes the act, it remains like that. It does not go any further. And even though these acts too are inseparable from it, yet these acts appear as not having the continuous operating. They took my divine will in a limited way, and limited it remained. On the other hand, for one who lives in it and operates, her act acquires the incessant act of operating continuously. These acts will always be acting in my fiat. They will never lose the attitude. What the operating of my will is, which never ceases, so become the acts of the creature. Therefore, always in my fiat do I want you, if you want to take it, not limited, and as though in drops, but as seas, in such a way as to remain so filled that you will touch and see nothing but my divine will. Fiat. April 23rd, 1932. How the creature is called by the divine will. As many times as she does her acts in it, so many times is she reborn in her acts. Contest between creator and creature. My abandonment in the divine fiat continues. I feel its call in all its acts. That is, in the heavens, in the sun, in the sea, in the wind, in the acts it did in redemption, because there is nothing that exists which has not come out of the divine volition. And it calls me to tell me, I have done everything for you. Come, to enjoy and possess everything that with so much love I created for you. Do not render yourself estranged from everything that belongs to you, and do not render our possessions and yours isolated and deserted. Come, and let your voice echo, that it may resound in all our created things. Make us hear the sweet treading of your steps. Loneliness saddens us. Company puts us in feast, and gives us the sweet surprises of the joys that our beloved creature can give us. But while my mind was wandering in its works, my always lovable Jesus, visiting my poor soul, all tenderness told me, Blessed daughter of my will, since all created things were made for the creatures, my divine will remained in each of them, to call the creatures, because it did not want to remain alone, but it wanted the one for whom things were made, so as to give her the rights over them, and therefore not remain defrauded in its purpose for which it had created them. Now, who hears this call? One who possesses my will as life, the echo of my will, present in created things, forms the same echo in the soul who possesses it, and in its own arms it carries her there where my own will calls her. And since she has her rights given by me, if she loves, all created things say love. If she adores, they say adoration. If she thanks, they say thanksgivings, in such a way that the love, the adoration, the thanksgiving of the creature who possesses my divine will can be seen hovering in the heavens, in the sun, in the sea, in the wind, in everything, even in the tiny little bird that sings. How vast is the love and everything that she can do and say. Heaven and earth are in her power. But this is nothing yet. You must know that for the soul who possesses my divine will, its divine omnipotence enters her operating. And true power means to diffuse oneself in everyone and everything, to call everyone into that act, to make oneself be heard by all with one's empire, to call everybody's attention in such a way that they feel the operating power of my fiat in the act of the creature. In fact, I can call it not her act, but my own, and those who are in possession of my fiat, that is, the angels, the saints, the creation, feel a vein of its power flowing, and they all come to attention in order to receive it. And bowing down, they adore, they thank, they love the divine will operating. An act of it is the greatest thing, the most beautiful, for all heaven and for all the earth. An act of its own, since it possesses complete power, whether it operates in the human act or alone, can bring innovation, transformation over everything, and make new things arise which did not exist before. So an act in my divine will takes place in the divine order, and with its powerful empire, it empires over all. It empires with its attractive love, with its enrapturing beauty, with its infinite joys and sweetnesses. It is an act that encloses the whole of everything, and those who do not feel the beauty of it are forced to feel the weight of divine justice upon them. However, all shall feel the touch of the power of an act of my will. No one will be excluded. And only these acts line up in continuous homage toward God Himself, because the acts done in my fiat are those which give the most glory to God and continuous homage, because they are acts reproduced by God Himself and take part in their incessant act. There's a footnote here for the word there. Their incessant act refers to the incessant act of the Holy Trinity. After this, I was doing my acts in the divine will, and my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, the soul who lives in my will is in continuous act of being reborn in the acts that she does in it. If she loves, she is in continuous act of being reborn in the divine love. And while she is born, the life of love is formed in her. And as life, it takes primacy in all her being, in a way that her heartbeat, her breath, the motion, the gaze, the step, the will, and everything else become love. And as many times as she is reborn, so many more times does love grow. This love, as life, and in act of always being born and growing, has the enrapturing and wounding strength, which, while it wounds us, enraptures us, but with our own divine power. And we, feeling ourselves being wounded, pour out more love from our wounds, and we wound our beloved creature. And in each rebirth, we redouble our love for her. In the same way, if she repairs, and for as many times as she repairs in our will, so many times is she reborn in the divine reparation, and forms the life of reparation in her soul. So her breath, her motion, her will, and all her being acquire the life of reparation. And since it isn't with one act alone that she repairs us, but with one entire life, she has as life the disarming power. And disarming us, she converts the scourges into graces. And so with all the rest that the creature can do in our divine will. It is lives that she acquires, which are nourished by our divine fonts. So, if she praises us in our divine will, if she thanks us, if she blesses us, she forms one entire life of thanksgivings, of praise, and of blessings toward her Creator. And each time she does it, while she is reborn in these acts and grows, She forms the fullness of life in a way that the breath, the heartbeat, if she thinks, if she speaks, if she moves her step, if blood circulates in her veins, the whole entirety of the creature, there is not one particle of her being that does not say, I thank you, I praise you, I bless you. Oh, how beautiful it is to see her, possessing as many lives, for as many times as she is reborn in her own acts done in our divine fiat, and for as many lives as she possesses, we feel in her heartbeat as many heartbeats in one, as many breaths, motions, and steps in one, and each of them, some say love, some reparation, some thanksgivings, some praise, and some blessing. These rebirths and lives form the most beautiful harmony in the fortunate creature who had the good of acquiring them. Our satisfaction is so great that our gaze is always fixed on looking at her, our ears always intent on listening to her. The power of our will calls our continuous attention. And as she says to us, I love you, so do we repeat to her, we love you, O daughter. As she prepares us, so do we press her to our heart. As she thanks us, praises us, blesses us, so do we keep repeating, we thank you that you are thanking us. We praise you for you are praising us. We bless you for you are blessing us. We can say that we put ourselves in a contest with her. Heaven and earth are astounded that their Creator engages in a contest with his beloved creature. Therefore, always in my will do I want you, because in it you give us much to do and to say, and you form our outpouring of love. Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 30, Part 11. Fiat.